My conversation with Christy Howard today. And Christy's been a constant and strong contributor and supporter of what we're doing here and really gets it. And I want to thank the audience for being so interactive and really getting out there, sharing things that are important to you, some things that are personal to you. Again, only share what you're comfortable sharing, but you also have to appreciate how much good you do for so many others by sharing a story. A lot of people think they're the ones who have it, right? And once things get normalized, everything gets a lot easier. So open chat, you drive the conversation with that. Christy, what's your thoughts today? And I know you've got a couple thoughts that you want to share
I
with
do.
me.
I have a little list. I have three things that I want to sort of bounce around. One, there's so many seekers out there, and they're all about the personal brand, or professional brand. And I want to, I call it your authentic brand because it's about you. So I'm curious how people have found their authentic brand, how they realized what is authentic to themselves. And the other thing is how you've become courageous, without being in the fear. Because when we tend to do things, the fear gets in our way, and understanding how to get past that. And then the last thing, because I just sort of want to go pop all over around, is what sparks joy in you today? When you think of joy, like my toes just tingled, and that when my toes tingle, that's my intuition saying I got joy around me. I'm weird like that, intuition. But what sparks joy? Can it be your grandchildren, dogs, life, just breathing? It's just about understanding, with everything that's going around. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, and every day I see new people with the green, the green frame, open to work. I mean, people are committing suicide. People are living in tents. People are just having a really hard time. And unfortunately, the system's broken. But to understand that you can look at a negative and find a positive, and find that kind of joy, and be courageous and not get into the fear. So that's sort of where, I'd love to get into that kind of conversation. For me, well, no, I'm going to ask you, Don. What about you? How did you find your authentic brand? What comes to your mind when you think of joy? Like the moment you hear joy, what pops in your mind? And how, we've all been fearful of trying things and everything. How did you get through that fear?
Well, those are great questions, and I'm excited to share, my insight into them. But I also want to invite everybody else who just heard those questions that if they want to share any one of those three or all three in a response, love to see them. To your point, joy is really having a definition that's very easy to achieve. Right? If you set the bar low enough and you authentically and thoughtfully believe it, right? That I'm worth more than most people see, but I see it. Right? If you don't see it, no one's going to see it, because that's what you're going to show. And you can get joyful by working at it. People think positive things come easy and negative things come hard, but it's just the opposite. By not doing something, you're inviting in a lot of negativity, and by backing up, you're backing up. But if you can find joy in looking at a bird, if you challenge yourself, take a walk in the next couple hours, look at the most beautiful bird you can find, and spend 20 seconds looking at it. Right? It's your attention and your interest that drives your attitude. Right? If you're aware, if you're motivated, all of a sudden everything turns positive. I mean, you could say to yourself, I feel awful today. And a day later, you feel wonderful, and you say, how could the world have changed so quickly? Right? And the world doesn't change so quickly. So how did I get through it? It's with people. the only way you can get out of a rut is someone has to give you a hand. I mean, same thing with a car or anything else. And if you have that built in, so many people save money, they have no support, and sometimes money's not going to get you out of situations, especially if they're your situations. And it's a trust factor. There's a lot of people you can talk to, but who can you trust and who really knows what you're talking about and who even cares, or do they care too much and they're going to tell you you're just great? So that's where I see the value of a group like this, because it's a net around 900 million people who are dealing with exactly what you said every day in some way. If it's not them, it's a spouse. If it's not a spouse, it's a friend. If it's not that, it's a neighbor. But everybody in some way, their life has been disrupted primarily because of technology. It's so overwhelming. It's so addictive. That's what takes up the time you could have used to fix or help yourself, is now you're playing word games and all this other stuff, and it's not helping you. And that's why I always say everything you do takes you closer or further away from your goal. But we've got some great people here. Let me recognize them. Linda Coleman dropped in saying, morning. You come here almost every day and you work it around your physical therapy. And that's great, because it's so gratifying to see people with a smile on their face, with some laughter that may never shown up. And more importantly, we bring up memories and situations that make you more whole, because first of all, it happened. No one can take it away. You know what it was, you enjoyed it, and that pushes something that might have been bothering you. And that's really the key here. And to your question too, how do you deal with it? Redirection.
Yeah.
Redirection of thought, redirection of action, redirection of people. I mean, you just got to clean house sometimes and set it right.
Yep.
What do you think about those answers, Christy?
Well, no, I mean, they're your answers, they're your experiences. But however, what happens is when we voice our experiences, other people can relate. They can get out of that darkness. They can say, hey, this fear, the fear means false evidence appearing real. It really, we're making something that's fearful. It's sort of when I jumped off a 45-foot pole and, climbed up there and had to get on a little small disc and then belay down. I was afraid of heights.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it. And now I don't get fearful anymore, because I realize it's like jumping out of a plane. I was fearful of something I didn't know. And that made me courageous. And going to being where you're an authentic person, you are who you are. You're the only person that's that person. And so you need to be proud of that person. We're going to constantly be growing. We're going to constantly be tweaking. We might say, well, I'm supposed to be this way. No, you're supposed to be who you're supposed to be from your heart, and stop looking outside of everybody for the gold stars. And once you get that, you're going to live your life. I mean, I used to say that people's perception is not always my reality.
Mm-hmm.
People will judge you, but that's just how life is. I mean, we all judge. I mean, but we're not in a place that we should judge, because we don't like other people to judge us. But for me, with my joy, when I say joy, I feel my heart and my breath. My joy is I'm alive.
Mm-hmm.
My joy is I have so much possibility of, everything I can take advantage of. And my joy is, my faith, because I'm breathing. But, understanding of helping others without expecting anything back, that's a tough place to be sometimes, because sometimes you need people to be there for you. But when you're somebody who gives a lot, it's hard for you to ask,
Mm-hmm.
because then you're used to that disappointment, and it's sort of like, I don't know, a circle. So, but that's, I me, I can go deep. I can, my conversations, the deeper, the better. because, with these comments and everything, we learn from everybody else.
Well, that's really what maybe keeps you within the lines, is having a support group
Yep.
that can reinforce enough to get you over the hump. Most people are on the fence. That's
Yeah.
where they end up, because everything that was easy has already been determined, and that's in the bank. The question is next steps. And I look at it like you look at it, Christy, in that I live with a sense of urgency, right?
Yeah.
The older you get, the more precious time is,
Yep.
and also the more valuable experiences are. Because, when they say 80% of the people are unemployed or whatever crazy number, right? Why are you at the last person to get into that group and not the first person to get into the other group? And it's really who you know, because honestly, if you know how good you are, if you really believe that, then it's only because people aren't noticing or recognizing it that you're not making progress. But you keep going back to the same people who won't recognize it because
Right.
of factors that have nothing to do with performance or experience, but with subjectivity, right? And just judgment before even looking, because they have so much. So
Right.
when you've got an oversupply of stuff coming to you, you can be super particular. If you're looking for 1 out of 500, you're looking to dismiss as many as you can, just for, hey, didn't put a label on it, and whatever the case. On the other side, if you get onto a LinkedIn Live, you don't have any filters between you and everybody here.
Right.
Right? So if I was sitting at home saying no one wants me, it's because they're not wanting anybody like me. I'm not in fashion, right? At this point. So going into that realm makes no sense. Going into an independent, here's my story. If someone got on every day, cost you hardly nothing, and told their story for 10 minutes, and that was it, eventually someone would hear it. And you would get what we have here, is people telling people about value. If you have value, share it. It's better, and you keep in practice. I know you do a lot of pro bono stuff and a lot of free stuff, but it keeps you in the game. It keeps you active. It keeps you experienced, and you never know who someone knows. What's your thoughts towards
Well,
that?
absolutely. I mean, I had a consultation yesterday, and I always have them send me their resume, and then I look at their LinkedIn, and I always pray over it when I receive it. I pray over it, just to get in a good mindset. And when he got on, I'm like, he was with a company for 26 years, and was let go. And unfortunately, I mean, my girlfriend's husband just got let go after 30 years. And I said to him, I said, I'm not, I said, I'm just going to tell you, I'm gifting you my services. I said, you're the sole, breadwinner. And I'm being, my faith is saying that I'm going to do this for you. And so, we had a really good talk and stuff like that. And some people are like, "Are you making any money?" And I'm like, "No." I said, "But I'm not supposed to be making money. I'm right now. I'm supposed to be helping other people, and just having the conversation and having a personal conversation, so they can have somebody to talk to understand that they're not alone." Um, but I like the whole thing about the LinkedIn Live, because people who, what's happening is they don't get to have their, conversation. They don't get to say, this is what I do and this is why I want to do this. This is what I could bring to the table. They don't even get to the interview to be able to say this, because a lot of people my age and everything are getting let go. And to have a LinkedIn Live where people could come in and just say, this is why I want to, I was a CEO president, but this is why I want to be a VP and director. This is why I want to jump down. This is, I just want to work. We're old school. We like to work. We don't, I don't think we would, even retired, we still work, because that's just, I know that's how I was brought up. I mean, my dad was working a week before he died. Um, and he was in the hospital. It's just, we're here to help other people. So I don't know. I mean, it breaks my heart when I get on LinkedIn every day because I see, when I see that little one going, I started a new job, I'm just like, okay, that's great. A year ago, a year and a half ago, we used to see that all the time. Now it's all you see is people got laid off, got laid off, got laid off. And I don't know what else we can do.
Well, I think, well, like you say, if something's been broken, it's because it's not working the way it should.
Right.
And it's based on legacy people, based on legacy systems and ways of doing things. But in this day of decentralization, right, of blockchain, things of that nature, people are just taking measures into their own hands. I mean, nobody could know how interesting and exciting you are, Christy, with a resume.
Right.
Right? If it's one piece of paper with a bunch of ink and a bunch of this and that, you're at best equal to everybody else on paper.
Right.
If you sent this to somebody and say, I have so many wonderful people that are being unrecognized and are just as interesting as exciting, right? That's who I am. I'm bringing you what people should have taken advantage of and brought in, because here's another fallacy, is no one's hiring for 20 years anymore. So whether you're 80 or you're 8, if all you're going to do is put in 6 months or a year and that's the turnover, they just need 6 months or a year, and they probably in better position to take fractional people who have tons of experience.
Yeah.
Right. And they can just leverage that core competency and not make them do busy work the other 20 hours, save the money, because people who have been around want freedom, right? They want to have a little here, a little there, a little there, get balance. But someone's got to be the interface between them and the people who are making decisions. And here's the way to do it. The decision makers are here. There's some statistics I saw that I'd be happy to share, that there's like 52 million people that submit a resume every day or something, right? I mean, it's just ginormous, right? And they're all going right to the same place.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a processing plant. They're getting dismissed without review in most cases. And the thing is let those people sit on that boat that's sinking and get on a lifeboat of their own, and then bring together people like themselves, create programming like this. So you bring employers on, you bring HR people, you bring people out of work on, and everybody gets a better understanding of, hey, now I see why they do that. And then the other person can say, well, I didn't see it that way, but now that I do. Everybody's in this game. It's musical chairs with faster music and less chairs. And that's how it's going to be.
I'm sorry. That's why the LinkedIn profiles, to be strong. And, I always tell people, people will stalk you. I mean, even if you're not hiring, you want to know who that person is. And so that your LinkedIn profile is your brand. I don't have anything about the company you're working for, because tomorrow you might not be working for that company. So you just give them your 2 cents in your profile. So to be able to have the conversations back and forth and have them, have conversations, let your voice be heard. However, do it with class. Mm-hmm. Don't go flashing people. Don't, even if you disagree, go DM the person. We all, everybody right now the emotions are showing, which is understandable. I mean, you're scared. You're looking for a job and you can't find that joy, and you're in that fear. I can't take away that fear, but my main thing is to get out of that head. I mean, our head is our worst enemy. Our head is a computer brain. Our head gives us, 1 + 1 = 2 type of conversation. But our experience is what helps us understand what's the next step. We learn from our experiences, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we have to do it a few times. Mm-hmm. We have to learn over and over and over again. I said to somebody, I'm finally listening to God. You
Mm.
know, I'm finally listening to the direction that I'm feeling that I'm supposed to go to instead of fighting it. And it's a good place to be instead of assuming that I know all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great place to be. And, just like Christine alludes to, one of my titles I put on my profile is Woman of Many Hats. We can define ourselves better on LinkedIn than on a resume. I change my profile once or twice a day.
Yeah,
I'll just change a word. But you know what I try to do? I make it aligned with what we're doing here because
right.
my profile is just a promotion of this. My
But it
back.
also helps the algorithm when you change it. Like I just changed my header and changed my about, um, and then eventually going to be changing my banner. But there, when you change the header, people are going to be like more curious. Like, well, okay, what's developing with this person?
Yeah, and I post 4 times a day. So, the key is impact, right? My message is the same. Everything I do takes me about 5-10 minutes because it's all templated. It's just change the names, change the date, and that's it. And based on that, you get repetition, which is important. And the second thing is they get the message sooner,
Right.
right? They say if it takes, used to say 5 or 6 or 7, contact points before someone would get it. On LinkedIn, they say it's up to 26 because there's so much stuff going on in your feed and
Yep.
everything else that if you're not keeping up with it, you're falling behind the people who are. So it's not a singular contest. The key is to have an amplified voice that goes to a relevant audience, right, for their benefit and yours, and a direction to it. It's like, why would I get on this bus? Where's it going?
Right.
Right? Who's driving it? And who am I going to be sitting with? Right? And if you can answer those questions by doing the simplest of things, which is there's an unbelievable demand and requirement for mental health. We talked about that forever. There,
Absolutely.
the job situation or career or opportunity situation is spiraling out of control.
Yep.
And if you're not sucked into it, either you will be or you'll be compromised to stay in it because either price pressure, I mean, it's an international game, it's an outsourced game, so the sooner you start building your boat and learning how to sail it and not depending on someone. It used to be people all had jobs and they could just hate them as much as they wanted and then switch a job.
Yep.
And now it's like it just turned is like, how do we get rid of somebody, right? For whatever reasons, and who's the most expensive, instead of who's the most valuable. So they're getting rid of all this experience. They're not bringing in much experience, but now all the experience is sitting on the sidelines. And through organization, through mutual support, through referral. I mean, how many times does someone say on this show, I know somebody, let me set you up with them?
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
where you want to be, is get in the flow, get with people like yourself, who are in the same boat, not competing. There's so many jobs that someone looking for this is not looking for what you got, vice versa. So it's just the dynamics. The trend is your friend. Know where things are going. Find a way to get on the right side of the street instead of the one that's too challenging. If anything's too challenging, it's too challenging. Accept it. Try another way. They want you to keep coming back, because who knows? But yeah, Paul is here, says, I think the reason why video is so important now is it lets people get to know you. Like Kelly says, the person behind the profile. Conversations used to be an asset, and no many companies are making decisions off a piece of paper. Well, conversations is everything.
And they're not having a conversation. They're looking at the piece of paper and going, okay, this person was at this company for 20 years. They're overqualified. They'll be bored. They'll be, retiring soon. Have the freaking conversation, people. You don't know anything from this person. You don't know why they applied for that job. Somebody said to me the other day that they applied for a job, a social media job. They called them in, they go, waste their gas to the interview, and the person says, oh, it's for a copywriting position. Nothing on the job description had copywriting on there. You already brought this person in. You see that this person has no copywriting experience. Why waste time? I mean, time is of the essence right now, especially when you're having to use your own money to go, drive with gas. But the conversations are simple. Don't make assumptions that you already know from reading the resume. I mean, as you can tell, I get on my soapbox because I get so frustrated about this.
Yeah, but I think the key here is that you're trying to get someone to see you, to have a conversation with you, right? That's your goal. On LinkedIn, you choose who you want to have a conversation to, and you invite them.
Yep.
And you can look for anybody in any company who's involved with where you just sent a resume. I guarantee if you sent a resume to Jim Smith at ABC Company.
I tell people all the time.
Or if you reached out to Jim Smith on LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn, you're a peer, at least as being a co-member, right? You're still a member of a club,
right?
And you're still accessible and available. And Jim Smith is looking for something every day too. And if you come across as, hey, Jim, I loved your last post. That sentence about this really struck me. I'd love to learn more, or I got a question for you. Do you have time? Now it puts that person in an uncomfortable position to refuse you because, first of all, they complimented you, right? They like your stuff. They're a fan. They actually pointed out something that you had to see to point out. It's not like I saw you went to Michigan State. And the third thing is you have a little time to that you can share with me. And I guarantee you, if you're doing it like Christy says, with respect, acknowledging you're asking for something, you're giving him a good reason why he should say yes. And that's really the key. And Rhonda, who was on the other day, she has a 10 by 10 strategy. By 10 a.m., she reaches out to 10 people. And then she did her 10. And if you do it every day, that's 70.
Right.
Right? Even if 10% get back to you in a week, that's 7. Would you like 7 people to get back to you out of 70? And maybe when you get better at it, it goes to 30. And then maybe if they're not the one, maybe they know somebody. Or if nothing else, you planted a seed. You don't have to bug them again, but you can get back to them in 4 or 5 months and say, hey, things have changed. Let's have an update call.
Right.
The more you put through the top, the more chance you got of something coming through the bottom. And to me, it's like just a throwaway when you send a resume to someone who's already have it. I always thought that overqualified, this is Paul, is one of the most silly terms. Many people have degrees are having trouble providing for their family because people prejudge them. Today, no matter what they say, it's pay for performance.
Yep.
Right? And you're also assuming these hiring people, whether they're owners or HR people, know what they're doing, know what they should be looking for. A lot of them just want what they are, what they like, want to make sure you'll golf with me next week. And also they're looking for political, bureaucratic people.
Yep.
If you're an honest, straight shooter, you're lost. They're looking for, something that appeals to them, not their customer, not the fellow employees. And more importantly, that will define the work culture and environment you're going to be walking into. So
so I do even want to go there. And what's happening is recruiters will reach out because they've got a rec. They have the conversation. They have a conversation with the HR people. The HR people are having the conversation with the hiring manager, but things get dropped. Things are not asked. It's not a detailed conversation. So, it'll come back where the recruiter will they don't have full communication. And what I've told a lot of people that people don't know, I mean, the rules have changed. Big companies have to put out an external post for a job. So people are going to be like, oh, I want to work for that big company. I want to work for that big company. And then all of a sudden that job person, but they have to put it out externally. So it's a tough situation because a lot of people are praying and spraying their applications. You see that people are putting in 200 applications a day. You don't. I mean, it's just my main thing is what I tell people: research and look at the culture. Go on Glassdoor, see the reviews, go on their page and see the people, connect with the people, ask them, how's this company? They have a position, and I don't want to waste anybody's time. So the research is more important than praying and spraying the applications, because you're just, it's just your brain, that you're going to get it.
Yeah.
But it's just a very sad situation right now. I mean, because LinkedIn is a social network for jobs, businesses. I mean, it's not Facebook, it's not TikTok, it's not Twitter. It's more about business, though a lot of people now are sharing their own personal story because they're being vulnerable and humble and saying, hey, this is who I am. So people are getting to know people better instead of just, here's my cell, this is what I do, and I have no other life but my job.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally what's happening, and it's only going to continue to increase with time. And, if you really break it down to the simplest element, it's just what's your communication strategy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all it is if you're doing it this way through the mail, which has been around like for 100 years or more, and you're hoping someone opens it, reads it, and so you get an interview. Big deal. Even so you get a job. If you're dealing with crazy people doing crazy stuff, it won't be long till you're back into the crazy mode. So, save yourself, like Christy says, because you keep going down to the dry well, and that's a signal that maybe you should check out another well. But the other thing is, if you're doing nothing, you got nothing but time. Right. And if you're not reaching out to people, if you're not going to classes, I mean, even take a yoga class, anything you do to support yourself and your well-being.
Your mental health. Yeah. Your mental health.
Go to a church and a musical service or whatever it is around you. Go to Toastmasters, because it's the people who will get you on your feet, because you'll start to identify and either say, I'm not the only one, or compared to that one, I'm so fortunate, because everything's relative. And a lot of people want to go back to the past, but that train's left the station. They want it like it used to be because it was good when it used to be.
Well,
and today, ageism comes at such an earlier period of somebody's life. So it's not like 60 or 50. Once you're 40, and to your point, they're only taking this because they need the money. As soon as they get another job, they're gone, right? And have you talked to them about that? Did you ever ask them about that? And maybe they'll tell you, I got a boatload of money. I'm doing this because I want to do it. So don't worry about, am I getting enough money for this, right? But that's why also you got to ask questions when questions are asked of you. Right? Is like, what were you meaning what did that mean, what you just said? Or can you explain this part, because I don't understand it? And then you take an equal footing in the conversation.
Absolutely.
Right? You don't want to be the person who drives it, because that's not going to work. But if you say, because people are going to know, how do you stand up for yourself? How do you speak for yourself when you're challenged? Right? And if all you do is yes, 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 because that's what people want to hear, is that who you want to be talking to in the first place? So Dean had a botched spinal surgery, did a resume. My old way was walk in and ask them to pull 10 leads. If I sold 3, I get a job. If not, we shake hands and part friends. Never went without a job. And that's so smart, Dean, because if you got the goods, you shouldn't be afraid to show it.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's a wonderful way of saying, I don't even want the job till I get a chance to do it for a day or two. So at that point, it's like an audition for you and them. And if you can say, what does a person like this do, and what do you expect to get from it? And if you can show up that day 1 or 2 and do it, now again, you're addressing pay for performance.
Yep.
Right. And if you, and
It's
hopefully,
also showing your confidence that you can walk through the door and say, look, this is what, I want to work, I can do this, but if I can't, it doesn't cost you anything.
yeah. And that's the key is if you have people that have unrealistic beliefs that are unrealistic, it's easy to insure against them. Right. If you believe this, give me a chance to show you maybe I can do it.
Right.
And it won't cost you anything. And I don't want to be anywhere I can't bring value anyways. And that's a different twist. And you know what, if there was something really wrong, and I've been in situations where people told me no, or we're not doing it or whatever. And I would always say, do you sign the checks around there? Right. And if they said no, I said, well, I'm going to talk to the person who does and tell them how you're doing your job.
Right.
Right. Because that, people, they never get pushback. And when it's legitimate and you're already out the door, you can take control of yourself and the situation you're in. Right. But if you allow somebody to minimize you, you go home with that. And when someone says, how'd it go? Oh, just like before, same thing. And what did you say? Oh, I just said goodbye. Versus, here, you won't believe what they just told me. And then what I came back with. And I felt so good when I left there. Right. Because I stood up for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't stand up for yourself, who will? And who won't take advantage of you once they see that? That's part of the job interview. They want to see how you respond, and they ask you questions. They don't even care about the answers. Most of those questions.
They're all scripted.
Well, and plus some of it, I have to ask something before I get rid of this person.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, honestly, where do you see yourself in 5 years? It's like,
well, but see, you got not to knock young people. You got a lot of young people who have never understood what the job environment was
exactly.
or will be. And that's a different situation, but it tells you something. But I think if you go in strong with respect, right? Nobody likes a pushy person because they're going to say, this is who I'm going to bring in. Some aggressive individual is going to challenge people and things versus being respectful. And actually, the other thing is show you did a little research.
Absolutely.
Every company has a page or somebody in it on LinkedIn. When you can come back and say, well, just like with Mario, I looked at everything he had his name on, and like his cruise line was partnering with the Paris Ballet,
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing a huge thing. And by saying that, it's like, well, you took the time and you remembered and you brought it up. So when you go into a company, it's like, hey, I saw you got a great award last year for this. Wasn't that cool? All of a sudden you're already on the team. And that's if you only have so many minutes, you need to stage that. Right?
You need to make it personal. So these people that have been with companies for, let's say, 25, 30 years, and I think this is another issue. My husband brought it up today, that people are walking it. They're afraid that they're going to walk and go, well, this is how we used to do it. This is how we used to do it. They have to get into that mindset going, I have this experience. This is what I could bring to you. However, I'm here to learn from you, from the company, and we mesh together with the two experiences, the young experience, the old experience, but not of this is how we used to do it, because we don't do it anymore like that. That's why the job's not there anymore. But it's about the attitude, it's about the confidence, but not being cocky, but being, as we keep on saying, researching, connecting with them. Go on their LinkedIn and see what they've posted, their
Mm-hmm.
conversations, what volunteering things that they do. You might even know somebody that they know.
You might even want to connect with the person you're going to be interviewed by.
Oh, I've always done that.
Yeah.
I've always done that.
Well, and here's the thing. If you say, I'm only going to get one interview this week or two or whatever number, I've got all week to get ready for it. Why wouldn't I want to do a little research? Why wouldn't I want to come prepared? Why wouldn't I want to go? The beauty too of LinkedIn is whoever is interviewing you, they've got content, right? You look at a week's worth of posts or comments, and you'll say, this person's into this, and this person is focused on this. All of a sudden, those are the subjects I want to bring up that I discovered, not that I am. Oh,
Right.
you like hunting, I'm a hunter. You like fishing, I'm a fisherman. But hey, when you went hunting over there and you caught this, it was really cool. Poonam's here. I mean, this is great. We do have, I mean, to have people come every
Dean,
day.
Dean, on your question, that would be me. Who can help you with your profile? That would be me. So,
Well, yeah, so reach out to Christy. I mean, we're a community. Everybody gets a chance to know somebody, and everybody brings something to the table. We've recognized that everybody's got a story, and everybody's got an important story.
mm-hmm.
And when people hear people's important stories versus superficial stories, like where'd you vacation last year, which is nice, but it's not deep in any way, and it's not therapeutic. Paul says, I think the challenge to Christy for older people is being open-minded because the world's changed so much, and many of them are used to routine. Well, many of them have created the routine.
Oh, absolutely.
And it serves them very well at the time, and they don't want to get into an electronic battle with someone who's on the front end. They would rather, hey, we're doing what we're doing, and as you're squeezing good quality people out, you're making them more desperate to get in.
Yep.
Right, and you're hurting everybody involved, and eventually, like to Christy's point, most of the people are hiring won't be there in a year. You know, so what did they just do? Get a bunch of people in and leave to something else? You know, so many people are leaving.
Bigger, shiny company.
Yeah,
they all want it on their resume that I worked at this company, I worked at that company. Well, guess what? Those companies just dumped your butt. You know, so keep the people that have been there where they have transferable skills. And gee, maybe have a conversation saying, hey, we'd like to keep you, but we might have to cut your salary a little bit.
Well, whatever it takes, you know, but here's the thing. Everybody should have an opportunity to have some control over decisions about them, right? And if someone says, but here's the thing, it's hard for an employee to do the job of the employer and the employee. You can't always negotiate with yourself, you know? And the thing is if you're not being heard, it really doesn't matter anymore what you're saying.
Right.
Right. So
they've already made up their mind.
Yeah. And if they're always going to be like that, you're never going to fix people. And why should you want to when there's other people? See, it's the other that is the attraction, not the present. And I think to the earlier point about joy, is life is so precious and so uncertain. To just throw yourself into a crummy situation with crummy people for some crummy money, right? Because everything that comes from it continues to hang on to where it came from. You're just sold your soul, and you know what? After they empty your soul, they're going to dump you. You know, there's never enough once you go down that road. But there's also so much opportunity, so much change, that if you can get on the right side of it and just help it, you know, get a tailwind instead of a headwind for a change. Find people who are honestly wanting to help you without return.
Right.
And reach out to them. So, you know, if you were working for somebody and they said, we'll give you $100,000 a year, and every day you got to do 30 outreaches, you would say that's so easy, right? If I just got to contact 30 people that's relevant and could help somehow, right? But when you're working for yourself and you're up against a wall and there's no money and you're watching TV instead of doing outreach,
right.
If you're not learning, I mean, the way I learn, I go to YouTube and Google. Every time there's always, once you watch 10 YouTube videos and you filter out the best of the best, you're talking about 45 minutes. And now you're conversational about something. You got a little bit more context and understanding. You know, when you look at Wheel of Fortune, I was always like, buy all the vowels you can right now. You know, even if you win $1, at least you solved a puzzle versus taking a chance. And that's, you know, but you need people who tell you it works. I can help you if you're willing to move forward. So if it all comes down to just you, not the past, not the blame. I mean, who cares? You know,
Doesn't
winning.
matter.
Yeah,
Past.
I always say winning speaks for itself, and no one cares how you lost, right? If you explain why I came in second, no one really cares. And if you win, like I say, you don't have to explain. But
I've
what you,
even asked people, did you really even like your job? Did you like what you were doing? And a lot of them are like, not really, but it was the paycheck. And it's like, well, you have these, I'm looking to your resume. You have these transfer. What do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I like to do this. Well, you've got you've got experience. Let's grow that. Let's go look for jobs underneath that and see how you can do something that you're passionate about and get paid for it. Because what happens is we go and I'm an accountant. I went to, I didn't go to college, but let's say you were an accountant. So you become an accountant, but you end up really liking sales, but you're an accountant. You can flip that over and become a salesperson.
mm-hmm.
And people get so stuck in their head going, but no, I've been doing this all my life. Well, no, you don't need to always do something that you've been doing all your life, because if it's not making you happy, if you don't have the joy, then change it. Go, as you said, Google, YouTube. I had a client yesterday. She started a new job and she's like, I'm having a hard time. I'm like, everybody has a hard time starting a new job. I don't care who you are. If you're a CEO, I don't care. You start a new job, your first 3 days are just like, I got to, I got all this stuff I've got to learn. I said, so I looked up the software she was doing and I sent her over. Here's different YouTubes that you can just remind yourself of how you do it. I said, you stop getting in your head and stop being so hard on yourself, because they hired you for a reason. They saw something in you and you have to believe in you, even though you've never done this software before. You've never been in this industry before. So it's believing in yourself, understanding that a negative can always turn into a positive. I bet a lot of these people that got laid off who are going into new jobs, they're going back going, I so don't miss my other job. I don't miss those people. I don't miss the toxic environment. These people are, good people. So we go through our experiences to go through them, to learn from them for the better. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and to your point, if you're not happy, most people feel like they don't want to be the reason they gave up a job.
Yep.
Right? How come you're out of work? Well, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. Oh, now you're doing nothing and making nothing. And
Right.
how bad was that job compared to where you're at? And that's where friends and family are not the best people to be getting advice from. That's where people who are in the field, who are on LinkedIn, who are then active on LinkedIn, and then who promote things that you align with on LinkedIn. I mean, you're
I
the one who can match.
I want to share a story. My mother, being in the generation of very judgmental, my father worked for DuPont for 36 years. She was a school teacher, but she didn't understand that, I moved around a lot, that I would change jobs all the time. And so I was talking to her on Sunday, and, I shared with her, a friend of hers kid after 18 years was just laid off. They just moved cross country for a job. And she's like, wow, she goes, she's 87. So she's not, doesn't understand all this stuff. And I said, it's really bad out there. And she said, well, how are you doing? I said, oh, I'm not making any money at all. And I left a very high paying job because I walked into this job under 4 weeks. I was just like, yeah, this isn't going to work for me. It's just not going to work for me. And so then I said, this is what I was going to do. And she said, well, how's it going? I'm like, I'm not doing it for the money. I said, but I'm the happiest I've ever been, because I'm helping people. I'm helping them understand they're not the only person there. And for the first time in my life, my mom didn't say, well, you should be working, you should be making money. She's like, I think that's fabulous, Christy.
That's
And
great.
it was just like, whoa, where'd that come from? But it just made me feel good, because I'm used to having a parent telling me that you have to do this, you have to do, because that's their way of thinking. And understanding that we can leave a job, but if we're doing something and growing something, we might not make the money right away. But if we're not focused on that monetary part, I believe that things happen, the positive comes in. and you become more healthier, and that monetary money will come through.
Well, or you adjust your lifestyle
Oh, well, yeah, that's
to your income, and now you're getting closer. And I think that's so important, is by taking action, whatever it is. Leaving is an action, trying to get into something is an action, but having confidence when you even share with people. Because if you enter a conversation weak, uncertain, confused, that's a sign that maybe you're having second thoughts, right? But if you say, I've never been happier, I love my
yeah.
life, I can reinvent myself now, I can be the real me that before I might have taken potluck or been accommodating. But also quality of life issues are so important. When people have been home for a long time, try to get in a car an hour early, drive through traffic, get ready every morning, come into the water cooler talk, end up with 2 or 3 unnecessary meetings that last too long. And then you got lunch, and then you got blah, 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 and you get a couple hours in if you're lucky. To me, anybody who's engineered a home office, right? A business opportunity where they can, just as long as you can type, you can prospect, and you get better with rejection. That's the nice thing. If you're getting rejected from people you reach out to, they would never reach out to you anyways. So you had nothing to lose. Paul says, sounds like you need to be a speaker, my friend. I bet that would blow your business up. Well, everybody's speaking right now, right? That's the key. Again, people say, well, when I get an invitation to speak at a conference or a seminar or something, create your own. Don't wait for anybody. They're not coming. They never have. They never will. And when they come, they're not coming for you. They're coming for them. So the sooner you just say, forget about it then, if that's the way the game's played, and it is. People keep going against the flow instead of saying, let me put a strategy together. And if I can't, could we? And that's part of this new collaboration group, is people now are motivated, but they don't know what to do and how to do it. If you go to Google and they've got 47 statistics for LinkedIn 2023, it just came out. Number 45, and I memorize this, is that video is 5 times more powerful than text.
Oh, absolutely.
LinkedIn Live is 24 times more powerful than video. That's 120 times more powerful, and it relates to every interactions. So the point is why not use a Ferrari at 120 times than a weak, meek text message post that will get 4 comments and 3 likes, mostly from everybody who knows you and follows you.
Right.
And that's what I would say. I mean, what I do every day is getting, no kidding, I went from 2,000 impressions a day. Yesterday was over 6,500.
That's great.
It's 2 million a year. You know what getting tagged 4 times a day in everything I do, and what people are commenting, I tag them there, and the comment goes with them every day on the newsletter. That's huge, but people don't know it. But what's huge for me could be huge for you. If you do what I do, you'll get what I get.
Right.
And it makes life easier when more people see you, when more people hear you, right? If you're lost, the louder you can be and the more people can hear you, the better chance you're going to get found. So we've got no one is coming to tell your story, and they shouldn't. You can tell it yourself. Why need anyone? Dependency never works well. Yes. LinkedIn Live is where it's out. Well, it's like I'd say, oh, okay, we just got a correction before I could correct it. Cadillac exposure at Chevrolet prices. Well, because this is intriguing to people, and for the same reason that people got intimidated who are watching the show. I mean, Christine's coming on tomorrow, and also she's coming on with Ann Breen. If you don't know her, she's a powerhouse. She's one of the top 10 LinkedIn people, up and comers. She's got 100,000 connections. Christine's got enormous benefit. And that's what we're trying to do is with the open mic was the biggest show ever. And that just happened because someone didn't make it to the show and had to fill in, and we figured it out. So the more people get on, the more people share who they are, because you don't want to be in the witness protection plan here, right? You want to get yourself seen and known. And that's what's so wonderful is you can start today, you can start tomorrow, you can start small, reach out to one person, redirect some time and energy to something you haven't done and wanted to do. Challenge yourself to challenge yourself. Christine says, too bad I'm not coming on today. I did not. Well, we'll somehow coordinate that in the future. But, that's what's fun about it is people being able to laugh at themselves, laugh with other people, not at other people, make people feel comfortable, because everybody's got a voice. Everybody's got a life. Everybody's got a group that's rooting for them. And, they should have every opportunity there is. And the key is they're not aware of it. They're aware of what they're aware of, which is typical.
Exactly.
You never know what you don't know. And the older I get, when I was young, I thought I knew everything. As I'm getting older, I'm finding out how much I really didn't know. And, you got to ask yourself this question. Have I ever made a mistake before? And if the answer is yes, could it ever happen again? And the answer could be yes, too. So every time you do something, don't get overconfident. And every time you do something, don't get underconfident, because life is about balance. When you can get balance, that's when you get joy. That's when you get happiness, because everything's in its proper order. To Christine's earlier point, some people are working 80 hours a week at their job to people who don't care about them. And everybody who cares about them is not getting the time they used to.
Yep.
Right? And eventually you can't fight at home and at work and win either place.
Well, we also, a lot of people, and I was that way for most of my life, that my job was my identity. That it was who I was, until realizing, no, it's just a place I go to do what I do, to learn or whatever, and get paid. But then I have to go have my life.
Well, even successful people, people who sell businesses on Friday, by Monday, 70% of them are either depressed or have seller's remorse. Why?
Yep.
The check cashed. But the problem was that was their second family they went to every day for 30 years. Those are the people, when they went home, their identity was, what did I do with who? Versus, people who never spent time with hobbies, right? Who are so entrenched in their work. They're not going to start golfing or tennis at 70 or something. They're going to look back, and they used to be important. I think that's something.
Oh, absolutely.
They used to be relevant. There were people that respected them for real reasons, people that loved them. And then, families move on. People get busy, and not everybody's going to change their world because you just changed yours.
Right.
And again, it's transition. There's transition from people into the workplace, out of the workplace, into entrepreneur, solopreneur type situations. But more importantly, if this is the opportunity, and I believe it is, as far as what it can do, the way you can leverage it is by locking arms with the right people and creating something. So now someone says, yeah, it's not on me 100%. I can add 10%. Or, hey, all they want from me is some core competency that I can leverage and be part of something bigger and learn, because the nice thing is it's scalable and duplicatable when it works. Right? So you can add zeros forever if you have a work in progress that turns out to be a success, because now you're selling results.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not expectation. And we're learning. And I think when it gets hard, you learn more because you have to think more. You got to say, oh, wow, how did that? I didn't even know that existed. And now we got to incorporate that. But it's okay, because Mario told this wonderful story about his parents coming out of a concentration camp as kids, and all they could do to figure it out was to walk. And they walked from Poland to France to get on a boat. Now, it just took that, I got to just start walking. You
Right.
know, and wherever it goes, I'm going to be somewhere else than where I am now, which is probably not where I want to be. So I think everybody does a little self-reflection, and you owe it to yourself to step out of yourself and reach out to somebody else. I don't care who that is, if it's a future employer, if it's somebody on here, because that's going to really demonstrate who you are. And you got to get right with yourself, because if you're not what you say you are, if you're trying to fool people, there's no help for you because it starts with a bad foundation.
Well, also, that's why I tell people recommendations are big on LinkedIn, because one, it sort of humbles you, because when you ask them for a recommendation, it's coming from their words. And then you're seeing how somebody else is seeing you. And you'll be like, wow, I didn't know that's who I was or what I did. And you start seeing, different views from different people. And then you can get outside of yourself and stop, you can see yourself from different views.
Well, I think that's a key point, because a lot of ways you could see yourself in ways you didn't know you were seeing.
Right.
You see yourself this way, and then someone says, well, I noticed this, it's so cool, and you did this, and it's like, I never even thought, I never recognized, but now that you tell me,
right,
the opposite of saying your shoes are untied, and maybe you're helping somebody from falling down, but when you can build somebody up with authenticity,
absolutely,
telling them something they should know, and you almost feel just as obligated as the shoelaces to get to know, because I know when I saw this thing in the news, and when Kate Spade committed suicide,
mm-hmm.
They interviewed her cousin David Spade, right? And they asked him about it, and he said, I know Kate well enough that if she would have just had 5 more minutes, it would have never happened.
Yeah.
But it was a moment of, just blind, response to whatever it was. And that's where everybody's got to be a little bit more thoughtful, because things could get worse and sometimes will.
Right.
Right. So
thoughtful to yourself. You have to take that moment, breathe, and just breathe. I mean, Kate, she probably, she just, a lot of people. I mean, I've been there 3 times in my life, but I allowed myself to breathe, to get through that moment where I was just like, I'm ready to check out because of the darkness.
Well, and that's, everybody has lived it, which is so valuable in a way of having reference and having empathy for someone who's doing the same thing. And that's why it's like, if you just had, and I talked to somebody who does that, as a pro bono thing, helps people through situations where they're desperate. And the way he starts, and we'll have to finish this up, is, can you wait 1 more minute? Right? Just wait a minute, I'll be right back. Can you wait 2 minutes? And then eventually, can you wait till tomorrow morning?
Right.
And that's really just like we're doing here. Everybody is either running from something or running to something.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get somebody either to run with you or to make the run a little bit more company, because it's the loneliness. It's Absolutely. That I'm all alone, I can't deal with this, and there's no one here, right? And that creates a lot of bad habits versus the other way. So anyways, I'd like to leave on a hopeful note. I hope we satisfied a lot of people's interest or questions. And, as you get more perspective, as you have more ways of looking at something, it kind of eases some of that intensity that you might have been putting on one view.
Absolutely.
And if you can spread it and get with people, that's where it's at. Christy, I can't thank you enough for coming on. You're so natural, you're so authentic, and you're so true and easy to align with and appreciate. So this group sees everyone's value. We also accept each other's flaws, because no one is any better or worse than the next. Nope. We are alone. And you're right, because
you aren't.
Even when I was owning the company and everything else, I would tell the people, don't judge me any worse than I judge you. I
Right.
make mistakes, so if you want it, demonstrate you're willing to share the same thing in return. And that's really about being fair and equitable. I mean, Christine sees it, and hopefully more people wake up before they're shook up. A lot of people are in situations they should be planning to leave already, and trying to get support before we need it. If anyone here ever feels this way, I'm weirdly available. Thank
Well,
you.
and so am I. I mean, I just wanted to say that if anybody ever just needs to talk or whatever, I'm always here.
Me
Um,
too. I mean,
yeah.
go ahead, Christy. I mean, and Christy's sincere, and it helps the people who help you to help people.
Mhm.
So there's a reward for everybody involved in it, and things may get, and they will for some people, tougher. So
Yeah,
now's the time to like get your support in place. Start reaching out before you need somebody to know if they're going to be there for you when you need somebody.
absolutely.
Preparation is important. So with that said, Dean, you're such a sweet potato. And that's so cool because, we find grace in simple things. And, I know, Dean, I would be really happy to get something like that said to me, and get my name there. And I guarantee you he'll be thinking sweet potato all day long. That's what you can do is you can influence people and influence their thoughts by how you
Right.
communicate. So
Right.
last thoughts, Christy?
No, as always, it's a pleasure. Kelly must have had a phone call or whatever, but I'll talk to her probably this weekend. Oh, I think I am talking to her this weekend. I just, I enjoy these conversations because when we talked, my morning was really off, and I'm not usually off, and it helped me calm down the anxiety that I didn't understand why I was anxious. So my husband's going to be very happy about that.
Well, the thing too is you see the value you bring as you bring
Yeah,
it through, and you hear the same things you're sharing with people, and
absolutely.
that's an uplifting opportunity. And it just shows by doing the right activities how things can flip so easily or so quickly. Ann Bimbola says, no one is really coming. One needs to do the needful for oneself. It's a good practice, and why not? And that's the key. If you're doing this, why aren't you doing that? If you're not
Right.
happy where you are, why don't you go someplace or with somebody you can get happy?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
anyway, keeps coming. Hello, LinkedIn family, OG cartoon.
Yeah.
Uh, Absolutely. Well, Dean, you're a star today. I think you showed
Sweet
up as
potato.
much as anybody else. So you are a sweet potato, as well as a regular potato. Maybe you like regular potatoes more.
Right.
So with that, goodbye to everybody. Rest up. See you in
Guys, have
about
a great
3
weekend.
hours. Tomorrow's Christine and Ambreen. It's going to be a great show. Bye for now.
Bye.